TFS Marketing and LLC, and Jupiter LLP. Both work with organizations to help leaders shift their thinking, earn the respect of their people, and focus on having the courage to stand tall. Donney will inspire your organization with stories and examples of courage. He will motivate you with his passion for helping people shift in order to reach their highest potential. Donney is a passionate person that's passionate about people, working with organizations who invest in people. So now we'd like to welcome Donney up to the stage.
You guys hear me? Hello? I know the front row can hear me, but can you guys hear me in the back? There we go. So, have you ever walked into a room and felt like you're immediately being judged? All the time, right? You can raise your hand for that. Exactly. You know, I feel like that every time I walk into a Mexican restaurant. I don't speak Spanish, and then immediately the lady who's taking my order starts speaking Spanish to me. And she'll say, yo quiero, and I'll say, taco, I think. But we're always feeling that way. You guys, as young people, always feel judged, right? By what you wear, by the way you look. Well, I want to tell you a story of the courage to stand tall. When I was a young boy, about 4 years old, I was waiting patiently for my dad to come home from work. When my dad arrived finally, he walked into the front door, and he was drunk. He immediately started arguing with my mother. And the argument turned physical really fast. My dad started hitting my mom in the face. She escaped his grasp, ran through our house up into her bedroom when my dad caught her. He picked her up and threw her on the bed. Then he grabbed a mattress from underneath her and threw it on top of her. My mom escaped again. She came running down that same hall into the kitchen when my dad tackled her. And while he was on top of her, he was punching her in the face like this. Me as a 4-year-old boy, scared and frightened for my mom, I ran and jumped on his back and said, "Stop hitting my mommy." That led to a lot of different events in my life, because one night my mom came into my bedroom late in the evening and woke me up slowly. She said, "Shh, be quiet, follow me." I followed my mom to our garage where my older brother and older sister were, and her little black car was filled with all of our stuff. My mom took my older brother, my older sister, and myself to California that night. We didn't have a place to stay when we arrived in California. We were homeless. We lived out of this little black car. And sometimes my mom would find friends that we could stay with for a couple of weeks. But eventually my mom would get on her feet and she would find a place for us to stay. This is where my story really begins, is with my mother. My mother was young, and she wanted to party all the time. She wanted to be happy. She felt partying and bringing guys into our home and drinking alcohol and doing drugs were the way of life. Was what made her happy, is being the center of attention in front of men and also women. I was left alone to be raised by my older brother, who was 13. Who's my 13-year-olds in here? Now I want you to think about raising 2 kids at 13. Isn't it scary? It's actually pretty scary, especially if you're being raised by a 13-year-old. My older brother, being 13, felt like he was alone. My mom wasn't paying attention to him. So, when we finally moved into a house, we lived across the street from these 2 young men who were involved in a gang. Immediately, because my brother didn't feel like he was accepted by his family, by his father, my father, by our mother. He joined this gang. At 13 years old, he became a gang member. And for the next couple of years, I watched gang members come into my home. I was 4 years old, turning 5. We would have parties. My mom would facilitate these parties by giving these young men drugs, alcohol. One morning, I woke up. I'm 5 years old. I woke up early because that's what 5-year-olds do. They wake up early, right? And I went downstairs after a late night of partying. There was people all over our floors in our house. And there were 2 boys still awake. They called me down and they said, "Come here, I want you to see something." They pointed one of the ladies out who was passed out on my floor. And they said, "We are going to," they didn't say it right out, but they said, "We're going to rape this girl." While she was passed out. She was so drunk and passed out, these 2 young men raped this young lady right in front of me. At 5 years old, that's what I witnessed. But as time went on, I didn't say anything. I didn't share that with anybody because I was scared. Because I was constantly being put down as a 5-year-old. I was called a sissy. I was called a punk. I was called, and excuse my language, I was called a faggot, a queer. I was told that I was gay at 5 years old. I don't have anything against gay people or anything like that, but that's what I was called at that time. I had no idea who I was at 5. Would you agree?
Yes.
But I did witness something horrific. And so instead of telling my family members about it, I kept it to myself. Eventually, my uncle would go visit one of these young men in jail. And he told them the story, and my uncle came back, and guess what he did? He didn't protect me. He didn't say, "Oh my gosh, my nephew went through this horrible thing." Instead, they teased me. They teased me because I was scared. Makes you not want to say anything ever again, right? To anybody. So, fast forward a couple of years later, my older brother, being part of this gang, him and his homeboys, that's what we call them. We call them vatos, we call them essays. Yeah, what's up, essay? But these homeboys, they were still in the truck one night. My brother was in the back of the truck, and one of them ran into a tree. The driver ran into a tree. My brother fell out of the back of the truck and broke his back. Now, this story is significant because my brother's paralyzed from the waist down. And so, I just wanted to share with you, it doesn't matter if you're paralyzed from the waist down, you can still do bad things. And so my older brother, because he was paralyzed, he got depressed. And my mom and my stepfather thought it was, they needed to help him with his depression. So they started selling drugs out of our home. They sold a drug called PCP. PCP is a drug that makes people, the way I like to say it, stupid. They make bad decisions. They forget who they are. They do dumb things. And I watched my stepdad on this drug. I watched my brother do this drug. My whole life there's been drugs all around me. My whole life I've watched them do drugs. That means I saw the drugs. That means I saw them do them. My mom would do drugs in front of me. One morning I was getting ready for school. And I was in the bathroom in front of the mirror, combing my hair. I'm in 3rd grade, getting ready for the ladies. What's up, ladies? When I heard a knock on my front door. No one else was awake except my cousins who live with us. So just so you know, being Hispanic, everybody lives with you and your family. Everybody. Your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, everybody. And so my cousins were getting ready, I was getting ready, I heard this knock come on the front door. It was a pretty hard knock. And as I went to the front door to answer it, I was always told, don't open the door, ask who it is. And I asked, who is it? And the voice on the other side said, San Jose Police Department, open up. I stood there frozen, not knowing what to do. The voice again came, San Jose Police Department, open up. If you don't open up on the count of 3, we're going to break this door down. And then I heard 1, 2, 3. Boom! That door came flying open. I woke up. Most of you jumped. That's what I did. I jumped. I woke up out of my trance. I ran to underneath our dining room table. I literally probably slid underneath it. And that's how scared I was. As I was sitting there, a police officer grabs me, picks me up, puts me on the couch in our living room. As I was sitting there on that couch, I watched my mom come out, my stepdad come out, my brother come out wheeling in his wheelchair, my aunt and my uncle come out. They're all in handcuffs. They bring out my cousins who are screaming and yelling, and I'm still in shock. I have no idea what to do. I don't know if I should scream or yell, or if I should just sit there. Well, that day they took my mom, my stepdad, and my older brother to jail for selling drugs in our home. My older brother got the harshest sentence of them all. He got 2 years in prison. My stepfather is the same age as my older brother. And he got 18 months in a youth authority program, where my mom got 6 months in jail, where she would serve 3. Now, while my older brother was in prison, he was immediately recruited by a notorious prison gang because he was scared. Being 18 years old in prison, you're scared. And these guys capitalized on that. They wanted him. And so they said, we will protect you. We will help you survive here in prison. But you have to become part of us. Within 2 days, he was already a member of this prison gang, which is a form of a mafia, a Mexican mafia. That's exactly the way it is. It's organized like the mafia. What we call them prison gangs in California. Well, we're going to hold off on that story for a minute. Now, I want to talk about the courage to speak. My older brother came out of prison, and by this time I was 12, 13 years old. And he came out and he was full-fledged into the gang. What he did was horrific. But he also got hooked on drugs. The same way he was before he went in. He came out and he was hooked on drugs. One evening, I was fulfilling my brother's responsibilities as a 13-year-old. Once again, you're my 13-year-old? Okay. So, one night, in the middle of the night, I was woken up by a baby's cry. My little brother was crying in the bed. As I got up to change his diaper, then after I changed his diaper, I grabbed his bottle and went to the kitchen to make him a bottle. As I walked into the kitchen, now we lived in a one-bedroom apartment at the time with 5 people. As I walked into the kitchen, I see my mom, my stepdad, and her friend. They're at the kitchen table smoking crack cocaine. That's the noise I hear. They see me walk in. They don't say anything to me because they know I'm taking responsibility for a newborn baby. As I turn on the lights, cockroaches flee in our kitchen. I prepare to prepare a bottle for my little brother, go back in, and feed him his bottle. Now, what do I have to do the next morning? What do you guys think I have to do the next morning? What's that?
Tell the police.
That'd be nice, right? You don't tell the police when you're in mine, but I have to get up for school. I'm taking care of a baby in the middle of the night and still trying to get up for school. Well, in my family, school's not important. So I get frustrated because I'm tired. I get frustrated because I'm behind in school, because I don't go to school very often. And when I do go to school, everybody's ahead of me. I have no idea what to do. Well, eventually my brother would move in with us, and we would move into a small house. And being frustrated at 13, I tend to speak my mind. Okay? And so one night, my brother and I we shared a room, and in this room, we had a dresser, we had a bed, and it wasn't a very big room, but we shared it. And so I had a feeling my brother was doing drugs. And so as I'm sitting there, my brother says, I gotta take a shower. And it's during an odd time during the day. And that shower he took was a long shower. So I said, I'm gonna go peek in the bathroom and just see what he's doing. So I go outside, I go around the corner, and the bathroom window is pretty high. So I have to get a crate. Not just one, but two, because I'm not so tall, right? And so as I stand up on this crate, I'm still not tall enough, so I'm on my tiptoes, and I'm looking, and I see my brother in the bathroom. He has a spoon, and he's warming it up with drugs in it. Then he takes the needle, and he pulls the needle out, pulls the drugs into the needle, and then he shoots it into his arm. I was so sad. I walked into my room, and I started to look for his needles, because I knew they were in my room. And as I searched the room, I found them. They were under our dresser, and it was a bag of needles. They were clear with an orange top, and I remember to this day. My brother comes out of the room, and this is where the courage to speak comes in. As he comes out, I'm sitting on the bed. I have his needles on the bed. I'm acting like an adult, right? Trying to talk to one of his kids. And I look at my brother and I said, how old am I? All drugged out. He's like, 13? And I said, yeah, I'm 13. How old are you? He's 22. I said, okay. You're 22, I'm 13. You're supposed to be my example. Instead, this is what I find you doing drugs and killing yourself. Can you imagine having that conversation with your older brother? Telling him that he's your example. That's what courage to speak is. We see bad things happening and we speak up. Right? Though Zamada said, staying quiet to keep the peace can be a good thing. But if the peace has already been disturbed, staying quiet won't make anything better. Summon your courage and speak when you feel the need to. Now, that wasn't the first time I had to have a conversation with my older brother. My older brother at that time was still involved in this prison gang, and he rose through the ranks really fast. He stopped doing drugs for a little bit because he had become a leader out in the streets. I would watch my older brother during this time, and homeboys would come up to him and make sure they told him hi. Because if they didn't tell him hi, they would get beat up. Or they would get killed. At this time, I saw how my brother was respected, and I wanted to be him. At 14, 15 years old, I wanted to be my brother. So I started to dress differently. I started to dress like an essay. And I'll show you that here in a second. But there's one thing that I didn't know about my brother, is that my brother was a murderer. That in order for him to rise through the ranks, he had to kill people. He had to sell drugs. He had to steal drugs from people who were selling drugs. He had to steal their money. He had to do all these things in order to become a leader in this gang. And guess what? My mom and my stepdad were right along with him. And I was being groomed to become exactly what he was. One morning I woke up and I turned on the TV to watch the news. Yes. 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds watch news sometimes, especially in California, because you want to hear what happened to people the night before. And I saw the anchor say, Raymond Perez was murdered last night, who was one of my brother's good friends. My brother comes wheeling out and sees me, and I said, Chocolate got killed last night. That was his nickname. And my brother said he had what was coming to him. Right then, I was more scared than I ever had been. My brother murdered that guy. Now remember, my brother's in a wheelchair. He shot him and killed him over drugs because this guy wasn't paying his dues to the gang. So, having the courage to speak, the police were investigating my brother. My brother hadn't just committed one murder, he committed 3. A young lady, 21, was shot in the back of the head. Another man was stabbed to death and thrown into a garbage can in front of and behind a junior high, just like this one. Eventually, the police would come into our home looking for my brother. And they would ask me questions. I didn't really know all the answers, so I didn't answer them. Scared for my life, because if I knew if I snitched on my brother, I'd probably die myself. Right? So I was afraid to speak. Afraid to get involved. How many of you feel like this? Oftentimes you're smiling, you're happy, but inside you are alone. You feel like that sometimes? That's the way I felt during this time. I was afraid. I had no idea what I was going to do. And I was alone. I didn't have my parents to take care of me and hug me and say, it's going to be okay. Instead, if I said something, I was called a sissy. I was called weak. I was told that if you do that, you will die. This is the way I feel. How many of you feel like that here at school because there's kids in your life that are bullying you? It's hard, right? It's hard to make those to be able to say something because you don't want to be the one to say something to somebody about somebody else because you're afraid of what they're going to do. But that's not the case. Being bullied, and if you are a bullier, don't be that. Because I was bullied my whole life for being too small. For speaking out and saying what was on my mind. But it took courage to do that. Now I had to have the courage to be different, right? So since I was a little kid, I wanted to play football. I'm pretty big for football, right? Pretty big guy. Ready to play. But my parents always told me I was too small. They said, you're too small, you can't play. I didn't give them that. So my freshman year in high school, I asked my mom, can I play football? And she says, if you pay for it. I'm not paying for you to play football. Okay. So I went to my garage, I grabbed our lawnmower, I looked at it for a second because it was going to be interesting mowing lawns with an electric lawnmower. So I had to grab an extension cord, wrap it around me, and I'm not too big. Okay, I'm probably a little bit shorter than I am now, maybe 5 inches or something. But I'm pushing this lawnmower around with an extension cord wrapped around me, and I earned the money to play football. And I absolutely love it. I love playing football. I was fearless. I wasn't afraid to get hit. I wasn't afraid to hit somebody. I wasn't afraid to tackle somebody. And most of these kids are big. The average size kid at that time was probably 5'8", 5'9", 6 foot. You know, really depending on how. And this is California. So California football players are bigger than Utah players. I'm sorry. Sometimes. But they're not. They don't have as much heart as you do. Anyway. But as time went on, I started to associate with different people, different friends. And these different friends helped me so much. They helped me see that there was something more than just a gang life. And this was during a pretty good time, a pretty bad time in my life. My brother's being sought after by the police. He's running from the police. My mom's freaking out. She doesn't know where he's at. She doesn't know if he's going to end up dead. She was only worried about him. She wasn't worried about what I was doing. I had 10 games my freshman year. My mom came to one. And after the game, they made fun of me for being too small. Even though I had a great game. There was a kickoff, and I was on the kickoff team. And because I was so small, the other guys on the other side couldn't see me. But I was fast. So I ran down the field, looking at the ball, making sure I'm getting there at the right time. And as soon as I get there, the kid catches the ball. And I hit him! Now, I didn't knock him down immediately. He stumbled backwards and he fell on the ground. Even though I did that, I was still called a sissy. I was called weak. I was called punk after that game. And that was my life. But I was starting to become something different. Now, I was living a gang life. And I was also living a life with other athletes. And my friends were different over here, and my friends were different over here. So here, I was confused. Because I didn't know which life to live. I didn't know if I wanted to be a good person or a bad person. But then something happened. One afternoon, we're watching, the news came on, and my older brother and my mom was in the living room, and she was watching the news, and I was in the kitchen making something for dinner. And next thing I know, I hear my mom say, "No, my baby!" And I run into the living room. I see the news pictures, and the news anchor says, 21 members of this notorious prison gang were indicted. 9 of them are going up for the death penalty. One of those 9 was my brother. And she's screaming, she's crying. A couple weeks later, after my brother was indicted and in jail, I went to go visit him. Now, I walk into this visiting room, and it is a small visiting room, but it's only for this prison gang. I sit down in front of this window with a grate over it because they don't want you to really see who you're talking to, I guess, because your eyes go cross-eyed. But I'm waiting for them to bring my brother in. They wheel him in. He's in a red jumpsuit. He has tattoos all over his neck, all over his face, his hands. And he's shackled at the waist. He's shackled at the ankles. Remember, my brother's in a wheelchair. And they release one of his ankle shackles, and they handcuff it to a stool that's cemented into the floor. This is how dangerous they thought he was. So, and then they release one hand so he can talk to me on the phone. He picks up the phone, and I pick up the phone, and he looks at me and says, "You look confused." And I said, "I am." He said, "Look at me." Once again, I'm looking at him with all his gang-affiliated tattoos. And he says, "Don't become me. Leave here. Move back to Utah and become somebody totally different than me." That was the best advice my brother ever gave me in my whole life. It takes courage to be different. It takes courage to not compromise. People will try to make you feel weak because you don't go with the majority. The truth is, you're not weak, you're strong. I had to learn that I was strong. I had to learn that by changing, I wasn't going to be weak. I was going to be strong, and I had to learn how to be strong. My whole life up to that point, up to the first 15 years of my life, I survived. I was scared to look over my shoulder and see who was behind me. And if I was going to get jumped, if I was going to get shot or killed because I was with the wrong people. I lived with the wrong people. They were teaching me to be the wrong person. But it takes courage to change. How many of you feel that way? It takes courage to change. Now let me tell you why it takes courage to change. Because when my brother asked me to change, to not become him, even though my whole life I was preparing myself to become him, I came to Utah and I had no idea how to change. No idea whatsoever. Now, I had one thing going for me. And what I had going for me was this. I was an athlete. I played football, I played baseball, I ran track. I did those things. And when I came to Utah, it was during the summer, midway through the summer. Football's about to start at the high school. And I decided I'm going to go to the high school and become a football player. So I get dressed up. I'm wearing a red Pendleton. I don't know if you guys know what that is. It's one of those shirts, button-down shirts, buttoned to the top. I'm wearing red shorts. I'm wearing black and red Jordans. And I'm walking to the school. I walk out the door and I'm so confident, I'm happy, I'm ready to go. Because I'm about to go talk to the coach and tell him I want to play football. I walk down to the school, and this is in Midvale, I'm at Hillcrest High School. I walk down to the school, walk onto the field, the football players are practicing over here, coach is sitting under a tree over here, and I walk up to him, and as I'm walking, I look at all the football players. They stop, and they're staring at me. Some of them are whispering. Now that kid that walked out of that front door with confidence, no longer have that confidence because I now became self-conscious. My self-esteem was down here when it was up here when I was walking to the field. So I took a deep breath, walked over to the coach who's a big Polynesian guy, and I said, I want to play football. When do I try out? Because in California you try out for football. In Utah sometimes you don't. And so he said, well, you don't have to try out. If you want to play, let's play. Let's see what you got. Because I was fast. He put me at running back. And in California, I played free safety. I was a tall free safety. It was awesome. But I was short, and the lineman couldn't see me. The defensive line couldn't see me, so that's what made me effective. And plus, I was fast. Now, that was the first time I had the ability to change. Because those people who were looking at me and talking about me on the football field became some of my good friends. And they were good people. And they helped me. They helped me not hang around with my race. And I apologize for that, but because my race, all I saw was gangs. All I saw they were all involved in gangs. I didn't want to be a part of that anymore. I didn't want to live that life. I had an opportunity to change. So I changed my friends. Eventually, I would change the way I dressed because it scared people. I showed one lady my picture when I was all gangstered out, and she said, I would hold on to my purse if I saw you back then. Kind of scary, right? I didn't know people saw me like that. And it tends to, I have to speak louder because my mic just went off. But it tends to make you think. As you are going through a change, you can't do it by yourself. You have to have influences in your life. And those influences are the most important thing. My junior year in high school, I was dating this young lady, and she was from California, here in Utah. Thanks, lady. Here in Utah, and I was playing football one night, and her brother had attended one of the football games, and he told her, he said, if you ever see that little number 2, I would like to meet him.